Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tantrums Linked to Diminishing Returns. That's right, it is the TLDR podcast. My name is Daniel, and that there is Jeff, and we're real happy you could join us for today's episode. Tell me, Jeff, how are you doing this fine week?
I'm doing pretty good. I didn't really do anything out of the ordinary. I have been playing way more of retail, WoW, compared to Classic. Just because, I know BlizzCon really invigorates you to play the live version more than Classic. Because Classic, more and more I'm realizing, Braden, right this instant is playing World of Warcraft Classic, but, and he's catching up to my mage, who's still stagnant at 53, but I'm just assuming Classic is going to just be this static thing that stays as it is right now for the next 10 years. So you think it's going to stagnate pretty hard? No, I don't think it's going to stagnate. That's a bad word. I think it's just going to stay static. Nothing's going to change because nobody wants it to change. That's the whole point. So I'm not feeling the rush anymore to get to max level or anything, because I know, like, an end game scenario for Classic with me is just having a bunch of level 60s that are all in the best gear possible and nothing else to do, really. So I'm not concerned about rushing. If they ever release it was asked at the Q&A panel at BlizzCon if they're ever going to release like a expansion material Classic versions, and 100%, if they introduce Burning Crusade or Wrath of the Lich King or even Cataclysm, I'm down. I'm in it to win it, essentially. Because one thing about Classic is it doesn't. I know this sort of sounds like a cop-out, but Classic doesn't have achievements, and I like gathering achievements.
Yes.
If you log in and you have nothing to do, you're like, oh, I'll just hunt some achievements. Why not? Can't do that in Classic. There's no trophy like power there. There's no like bragging rights to anything, because unless you wear it on your character, there's no way to prove you've done it. So I've been playing retail a lot. I haven't unlocked flying yet in Battle for Azeroth, so I'm really working towards that. Of course, I'm playing with a human Death Knight, and it's both the World Quest week, which is going to end tomorrow, but it's also the Blizzard anniversary.
Yes.
So between my racial, the anniversary, and the week thing, I have like an 80% boost to reputation gain. So
oh my!
I'm just hammering through as much quests as I can for the. I just got the Mechanome to Revered, and then the Rustbolt Resistance, and now I'm working on the Nazjatar reputation. I would say it's going pretty good. Probably a day or two away from getting Revered and finally ultimately unlocking flying. I had other things to say, but I forgot them as I was talking. I went through Throne of Thunder yesterday because I was like I just said, logging in and having nothing to do. Oh, achievements. So I went and did some mount hunting in Pandaria. And while I was in Pandaria, I was like, there's 2 mounts in Throne of Thunder, I might as well go do that. And I always do any old raid instance at the highest difficulty and
of course
and size. But the thing with Throne of Thunder is one of the bosses, even at this current level, if you don't follow the mechanics, it'll just kill you. And that's the Dark Animus.
Yes. Oh, that one is so annoying.
So I went in there, and turns out, remember how some of the Legion artifacts had quirks to them that were like not implicitly explained or mentioned? Like the one monk one, it periodically, I think it reduced the damage you took when you fell sometimes.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So I'm running through, of course, with my warrior, who isn't max level. He's like 112 right now. So he still has his Legion weapon. And I'm running through Throne of Thunder, and as I get up to the closest troll, they all flee from me. because my sword is legendarily known for killing trolls.
Is that right?
All trolls know this weapon, and even bosses were running away from me. I was this is amazing! So I had a really cool experience in Throne of Thunder as I went through to try to farm mounts. And when I got to the Dark Animus, I was like, I'm just going to wing it. And I succeeded. I don't know how I did it, but I killed him. So I was like, all right. So I was able to go through the entire instance, even killing the hidden heroic boss at the very end. Not that that accomplishes anything other than an achievement, but he is one of the what are those guys called in not Ice Crown, the mountain zone next to there?
Stormheim.
Stormheim.
No. Storm Peaks.
Storm Peaks. What are those big dudes in Storm Peaks called? Those big NPCs, like
the big storm giants?
Yeah.
Frost giants?
They're friendlies that give you quests and stuff.
I think they're storm giants. Oh, the starts with an a U. Utgard. No. Sons of Hodir. Those guys?
Yes.
Yes.
There's those guys.
Definitely starts with a U.
when you go into Ulduar, there's more of them are in there. Algalon is he's like a computer dude for Azeroth. Anyway, the final boss of Throne of Thunder is one of these dudes. He's like the avatar of storms or something like that. And so I was like, oh, this is neat lore, but I'm not really in tune with this side of lore for World of Warcraft. But speaking of lore for World of Warcraft, we can get into this a little bit later. Maybe I will get into this. I'll let you talk about your week first.
Sure. Yeah. No, so actually, it should go quick because my week was pretty well a carbon copy of yours. I haven't loaded up WoW Classic at all this week. I've been playing retail because, like you, I was reinvigorated by watching BlizzCon. Absolutely loved it, and I knew that there's a few check boxes I need to get before I move on to the next experience. I finished the campaign, like the main story campaign. Well, as far as I didn't go into the raid, but I finished it up to the raid. And then I got my, what the heck are they called? The Kultiran reputation, or not reputation, but I finished the quest line to unlock Kultirans as an allied race.
Right.
And I've been working on my Nazjatar and Rust Bolt reputations as well. Because funny thing, I pulled up the Pathfinder achievement, which is what's required for you to be able to fly in the Battle for Azeroth zones, and I didn't see the 2 rep requirements. I just saw the exploration requirements. There's 3 zones you have to explore fully from the ground, and I was like, oh man, I only have like two little sections of the zone to explore for 2 of these different zones, and it's like going to be a super quick like bing bang boom, and I'll have flying. And when I finished exploring the last of the zones and nothing popped up, I was like, there must be a quest or something that I need to go on now to actually unlock it. And so I pulled open the achievement again, and that's when I saw the 2 reputations, and I was like, oh man, these 2 things that I haven't like touched at all. And I pulled up my reputation tab and I looked at them, and sure enough, I was like a quarter of the way into friendly with Nazjatar and only 1 quest into the Rust Bolt resistance. So
that's unfortunate.
I'm halfway through Honored at this point with Nazjatar, and probably I'm about a quarter of the way into friendly with Rust Bolt. So I got a ways to go. It won't be a day or so for me.
No, but yeah, it's taken long enough, I think, for me at least, to get flying, because I should have gotten it right away, because I think when the Mechagon Island first released, I went hard on it for about a week, but I just didn't give the appropriate amount of time.
Yeah, well, the thing is the Mechagnome aesthetic really doesn't do anything for me, and I actually quit playing retail WoW probably about 6 months ago. So long before the WoW Classic came out, I actually put the game down, and I was like, yeah, I'm done with this for a while, maybe forever. just because it was the same stuff over and over and over again. It was a new zone, yeah, but there was a new reputation and another currency to farm, and it was just kind of more of the same over and over. And I was like, yeah, this is WoW. This is the WoW I know, and I'm just not into it. And but oddly enough, that kind of 6-month break from retail, and even though nothing has changed in either of those two zones, I'm really enjoying it a heck of a lot more now. And I wonder if it's because I've been able to put that carrot in front of my face,
Right. I will say I also did the anniversary event, which was going to the Caverns of Time and reliving.
I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's less in depth than I would have wanted, but that may be for like a good thing, because I did all of the events, which was the Burning Crusade, the Wrath of the Lich King, and Cataclysm. Interestingly, you do 3 bosses for each expansion, and they're not random. They're like 3 preset bosses, and for Cataclysm, Deathwing wasn't one of the bosses, so I thought that was interesting. It was like, it was Cho'Gall, it was Nefarian. I can't remember the third one, but it definitely wasn't Deathwing. I've done Deathwing like 100 times. I know what Deathwing is. So that struck me a little odd. Maybe the Deathwing fight was too complex, or even possibly too boring. I don't know. The fight on his spine is really cool. So it's interesting to me that they excluded that. And I think it was a 30-man LFR group.
Okay.
So then I did the Wrath one, and the Wrath one the first one is Hagen the Unclean. Who's of course a boss in Nax Ramis. He's very famous because he's the boss that you have to like dance across the floor to avoid like the explosions of green ooze. And if you try to stand on the platform that the boss is standing on while the ooze is exploding out like that, you just die really quickly. He like pulses an AoE, so you have to like conform to the dance. So a lot of players had never ever experienced it before and died. And then we were like, okay, well now we've learned our lesson, hopefully. And we're like, us veterans were like talking amongst each other, and we went back into it, and sure enough, they didn't learn anything, and they just died again. And we're like, oh, okay. And I was having the time of my life, because it's been so long since I've played retail that I just didn't take it seriously. So it didn't matter to me that we died a couple times. I like, this is just hilarious and fun to watch the newer players just totally nosedive. I'm having trouble remembering who the second boss was. What are the raids? Oh, it was Anubarak. Anubarak?
Oh.
No. It was the guy in Trial of the Crusader. A big beetle boss.
I don't remember his name.
Yeah, I didn't do that raid very much. But and that guy's pretty easy. Like, you can fail pretty miserably against him and still win. So, same with Hagen the Unclean. You can still have at least half your raid group and succeed. But nonetheless, so the first 2 are okay, and of course the third boss for the Wrath set of bosses is Arthas. And it's funny because nobody except for like 3 people out of 30 knew the rules, where the Valkyr come down and they pick up a dude and they try to fly him off the edge, and so everybody gets super hyper focused on killing the Valkyr before they kill somebody, and then they completely forget that Arthas has Defile, and whenever anybody stands in Defile, it makes Defile expand. So when everyone's stacked together, it just expands to the size of the full arena and kills everyone. And you're like, oh. So we're like, just let the Valkyr kill our dude and just scatter. And it was just, it was a lot of fun. And then the Burning Crusade bosses, not Tychondrius? Who's the, not Kill Jaden, but... and it's an A name.
Yeah, I was going to say, it starts with A.
Archimond. Archimond.
I can't believe we couldn't remember that.
Yeah, that's weird to me. So it was Archimond, it was Kael Fass, and it was Lady Vaj. Lady Vaj was really simple. I thought so. I'm not sure if you remember the mechanics of Lady Vaj, but there's a phase of the fight where she's standing in the middle, and there's these water elementals that spawn at the bottom of the stairs, and you have to kill them and get a specific item from them, and then use it on one of like 4 different pedestals. And if you once you break all 4 pedestals, then you can attack Lady Vaj directly.
Yeah.
This mechanic.
I've never played against her at level. Like every time I've beaten her, I was just walked up and punched her once, and she fell over dead.
Okay, well, so this. I'm not sure if you can actually do that. Maybe you can nowadays. It used to be that even if you could one-shot her, she would just glitch at 1 health and do her phase. Anyway, she was easy. That mechanic wasn't in there. And the thing is with all of these bosses is you don't kill them. You just do like 20% of their health. Which is
really,
that was the weird part to me. I was like, it'd be nice. I know it'd be a little bit longer, but it'd be nice to do like the full fight. So Vaj was very simple, it was just like a tank and spank essentially.
Right.
There's a lot of poison on the ground and stuff, but that's it. Kale Fast is really fun because everyone gets their temporary legendary items during the fight. So you get to, realize what those weapons actually did, and experience the fun of Kale Fast because he chucks you all over his little room when he fights you. And then Archimond, he was really difficult because I did Archimond maybe once in Burning Crusade, when he was current, and although I knew the mechanics, I didn't know how to counter them. So,
right.
like, one of the mechanics, there's, like, streams of fire on the ground, and I was like, okay, they just, like, randomly move around, and I'm like, okay, maybe I just avoid them. But then he fears you, and sometimes you get feared into the fire, and your character just stops in the fire, and this fire kills you in, like, seconds. So, I'm like, how do you counter this? Sometimes he looks at you and, like, I'm not sure if he, like, football kicks you or what, but he'll knock, like, 5 polaris up in the air, like, up to the height of his head so that when they fall back down they die, unless you do the mechanic to save yourself. And there's all these different things that a lot of people clearly couldn't remember, even the people who were obviously knew what they were doing during the Kale Fast fight. When the Archimond fight came along, it was a little bit iffy, and the problem with these events were you had to go through the bosses in a specific order. And once you got to the end boss, whether it be Archimond or Kale Fast or whatever the end one for Cataclysm was, if you die, you reset. You have to do all 3 bosses again.
Oh no!
So it's weird in that sense as well. But it was fun. And I did the Wrath of the Lich King one last, and when I beat that one, I got this level 420 mace. That looks, it's very Wrath of the Lich King, like aesthetically. It has like the dragon skull on it and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And so it like perfectly fit my Death Knight's transmog gear, so I didn't even have to transmog it. And I was like, okay, cool. And it was a huge it was like a 50 item level upgrade from my previous weapon.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
I was just like, all right, I'm good. So and then the only thing that's left for me is to kill Lord Kazak and the Dragons of Nightmare and the other dragon from, I think it's the dragon from Azura, the Zone Azura. I can't remember the dragon's name.
Now you're making me go way back.
I haven't done that yet because you don't have to go into the Caverns of Time for that. You have to actually go to the physical locations of these bosses. Okay. So I went to Duskwood to face the Dragon of Nightmare. And I just blindly flew in because I'm at level 120. And I'm like, I'm just going to eradicate this thing. And when I landed, it was a skull mob, and it just one-shot me. So I was like, ow. So I haven't done that yet, but I definitely plan to.
Yeah, and there's a pretty sweet mount too once you get all that completed, right?
You don't have to do the vanilla stuff for the mount. It's just the Caverns of Time stuff. And so, yes, it's like a mini Deathwing. It's very cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, but enough about that. If you're ready to move on.
I'm not.
You're not.
I figure we should cover the Blizzard stuff before I move on. Before we move on to your story, because your story is going to be a bit more in-depth.
I think, we might be at it for a bit.
So, with BlizzCon completely concluded, we sort of did a summarization of the event at our last episode. But there's a few things that firstly, things I need to mistake, things I claimed from the last episode that I was incorrect on, that I want to correct. But then there's other questions I have for the expansion in general.
Okay.
So the first mistake is Overwatch 2 isn't on a different engine. I did research later on; it's on the same engine from Overwatch 1.
Oh, okay. So I wonder why they needed a 2 instead of just a DLC.
And we'll get into that after your segment.
Okay.
Because I did a little bit of research on that as well.
Okay, neat.
Secondly, Bolvar Fordragon was a paladin. I don't know. I don't know why I thought he was a warrior. But honestly, like I remember doing quests with him in Wrath of the Lich King and stuff, and for some reason, I remember him as a warrior. I don't remember Tyrion Fordring screams in my head paladin. Bolvar Fordragon screams in my head warrior, and I don't know why. So, yeah, just a little, because I was doing a lot of not super in-depth research on Anduin, but I was just looking at like a brief summarization of his entire story. And while I was going through it, Bolvar was mentioned, and I was like, oh yeah. And I clicked on him, and of course his officially recognized class is Paladin, and I was like, what? Oh. So yeah,
Anduin?
No, Bolvar.
Anduin's? Oh, okay. I was like, what?
Is Anduin just priest?
I think so. He's priest plus because he's obviously wearing plate mail.
He's just priest.
Yes.
I'm just double checking that Bolvar. Yeah, Bolvar is just specifically just paladin. So
yeah.
I don't know why I thought he was a warrior, but there you have it. So I was doing research on that. I was doing research on the light, because obviously the light. I watched the Magar, the unlocking quest for the Magar Orc for Horde.
Okay.
And Irel is featured in that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they go back to the alternate Draenor, and she's gone insane. She's like she's almost a villain. So I was like, what the heck? And I know light isn't specifically purely good, like intentioned. Just like it was like really, really well told in that awesome cinematic when that Nehru tried to force Illidan's fate on him, and he's like, I'm not a slave, and he broke it and killed the Nehru, or whatever he did to the Nehru anyway. At least shattered it into pieces. I was like, oh man, I guess the light. I was trying to define the light. I'm like, are its champions specifically good or evil, or are they just overzealous? Maybe they seem to go super extreme.
Well, I don't think it's characterized as extremity, but rather conviction, because it's very moral, right? Maybe not for the Naru, because I don't think that they can really feel morality. I don't think they feel right and wrong, but I heard it explained, and this might come from the what's that textbook called again? I'm never good with names. The anthology there that they released 2 volumes of so far.
Oh, the anthology.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
What were you talking? Oh, the potential for, so the void sees all possibilities, like all kind of as time fractures. They see every single possibility as truth, and the light is only capable of seeing one possibility as truth, and all else is false. So that's kind of where they're possessed of the need to pursue that true timeline, if you will, and that's, I think, what the Naru are doing, is they're facing after, or they're chasing after that one particular future.
Right.
so neither good nor evil. But I think that, characters like Terralion, right? Definitely not an evil character in any capacity, right? Probably not an evil bone in his body, but the zeal to pursue morality, right, at all costs. That's definitely in there for sure.
Right.
The greater good. So
yeah. It was just very interesting to me because of this upcoming expansion. Speaking of which, there's some things at the Q&A at BlizzCon that I was like, well, why didn't they ask this, or why didn't they ask that? And so I'm just going to voice the questions I had, and let's see if we can. There's only 4 questions, and we're going to see if we can somehow formulate some sort of answer.
Okay.
So the first question is: with the expansions being spread out as they are in the new leveling system, will we be experiencing them in their truest forms, with artifact weapons actually being a thing again, or work towards old legendaries opening up, such as the cloaks and the rings and stuff like that? Because the artifact weapon is going to be given to level 10s.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be like alterable to the point that it's like relevant throughout that the Legion expansion. Otherwise, it'll be pointless.
Yeah. No, I think it's a timing. I think it's a timing thing. So, like, let's say, for instance, we're talking about Wrath of the Lich King, and the pieces of that legendary you had to collect. You had to farm for months and months and months to be able to build that. I think it was the Atiesh, the priest staff, or whatever it was. In Wrath?
In Wrath, it was just... it wasn't Atiesh. There was the Valinir Mace, and then there was Shadowmourne the Axe.
Either way.
There was a bow at some point.
There was a... Yeah.
Thoradol's Fury.
I was pretty sure it was a weapon. But anyways, I don't think that kind of stuff will be realistic, because they did say 60 to 70% faster leveling time, right? So I don't think that we're going to spend enough time to make those, those kinds of achievements. And if they instead triple or quadruple or whatever enter X multiplier to those kind of drops, I think it'll take all of the mystique, all of the pride out of it to, oh, look, another legendary dropped. Do you know what I mean? I don't see it being...
I don't think they'd have to multiply anything. It could be something that if you don't finish it by the end, it's something that you can return to later on. It would be an irrelevant item suddenly, but it would still be something that you could say, hey, I did this.
Well, and here's the other thing too, is it won't be irrelevant because they're loosening the transmog restrictions. So we're going to be able to transmog to...
Well, yeah, but I meant that the power legendaries of the item will be irrelevant.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
Continuing off of that, items that were previously locked at their max level in the old system of expansion separation, would they now all be level 50 items? Like Burning Crusade items would be the same level as endgame Legion items?
I would assume so.
Which basically means that you could have the artifact weapon with, like my warrior has all of the legendary items from every expansion. So would all of those be level 50 items?
I would assume so.
I would assume so too, but that seems almost overpowered for a level 50 character. Because going into the expansion, I can just don all of these orange things on me and be like, oh my gosh, I'm suddenly super powered.
I wonder if they're going to, because there was a cap on how many legendaries you could wear.
No, and that was specific to Legion.
Yes, I know that. In Legion, but I think it would be pretty easy for them to apply that same restriction, just, a blanket restriction across all legendary items in the game.
Oh, I would hate that so incredibly much.
I think that they could, and
because I do
because
time walking.
I'm thinking like PvP, right?
Oh no,
they have to be able to restrict that somehow.
But for like time walking and stuff, oh, it's so awesome to wear all my previous accomplishments and go in as a super-powered menace.
Yeah, it'd be neat. I wonder, yeah, you know what? They might be able to put a clause in there that says it's only in PvP that you get reduced down to, 2 legendaries or whatever.
So my
third... It was 3 in Legion.
Right. 2.
I think they upped it to 3. It was 2 at the beginning, but they upped it to 3, I think.
No, it was always 1 at the beginning, and then it upped to 2.
Oh.
Anyways, third question is, what about old dungeons and raids? Will they pale in power to a level 60, or will there again be challenge, since all expansions end at 50? They said that you'll still be able to power rush old dungeons, but if the level difference of a raid dungeon is only 10 levels, will the players be forced to group together to smash through these old raids?
And that's an interesting question, because if you're still going to be able to accomplish the same runs, like you do today, which is what they assured us that you were going to be able to, at max level, you'll be able to do any raid that you did before, power
right.
level, or not power level, but, bum rush, whatever you wanted. We're probably looking at a pretty insane power creep from 50 to 60.
Yeah.
Which is something that they were really kind of hoping to get away from, just last expansion when they gave us the item level squish. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out, because it seems to be counter to the spirit of what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, exactly. And if you will be able to still crush all previous content, does that mean that the stat difference between 50 and 60 is insane? They might be wildly exponentially increasing stats for all I know. I have no idea. It's just curious, though. Yeah. Fourth question, final question. With Illidan now gone from the story, would not a new demon hunter take his place to lead the remainder and train new demon hunters? In other words, is there no possibility, or any possibilities, for other races receiving access to the hero class? Because I know we have 2 impromptu leaders of the demon hunters, the night elf and the blood elf, but
yeah,
that doesn't mean that there are no more demon hunters ever, right? Bolvar took over for Arthas for Death Knights. What's going to happen with the demon hunters? Obviously, it's going to expand, but in what way?
Yeah, I think not this expansion, because I think we're dealing hard with death, and I think that Legion is taking a back seat. So I think the as far as lore wise goes, the need for demon hunters is kind of receding at this point.
Well,
so
it's gone.
Well, and essentially, kind of that's the headcanon that my demon hunter is kind of wrestling with. She's like, okay, what do I do in a post-Legion world? Where do I find my value? Does she just go and retire, or does she commit suicide? What does she do? Because there's no point to her anymore. Well,
there's no point to any of them. The Burning Legion's gone. What's there left to do?
The Burning Legion isn't dead. It's not gone. It's been beaten, but it's not gone. I don't remember who said that, but it was said by an influential person that it's not. The head's been chopped off. Of course, Sargeras is, but Sargeras isn't dead either. So, I mean, there is very, very likely that we're going to see the Legion again at some point.
I don't know. I think it would have been better if Sargeras had been killed and then just waiting for us in Shadowlands. So then we could have this.
That's interesting.
This ultimate council of villains we've already killed just teaming up against us, like Batman in Arkham Asylum.
What if the next time we go back to whatever that the Titan's throne room is, what if the next time we go back there, we find that Illidan has slaughtered them all and he's consumed all their powers, and now he's the ultimate big bad?
So then he's the big bad. That would suck. But
did I just crush your heart a little bit?
Oh, Illidan was done so dirty for so long. I would hate to see him done dirty again. So,
dirty deeds.
Before I pass it to you ultimately for your little news segment, or medium-sized news segment, I have a tiny news segment that I want to cover.
Okay.
That's well related.
Okay.
So they did the the what's that called? The
Earnings call.
Earnings call. Sorry.
Ah, total shot in the dark.
It was something call. I was like, call. What's it? Anyway, they did their earnings call, and they revealed that this last fiscal quarter, which ended on September 30th, was their biggest boom of subscribers ever in the entire franchise. Over 15 years of World of Warcraft, and this is the biggest boom they've ever had. And this is telling because the previous biggest boom was 2.5 million subscribers. Which basically means I'm this is totally like freeballing it. I would say they've gained between 3 and 4 million subscribers in this last third quarter.
Now, do they lump WoW Classic into that? And do they count old accounts?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
That's implicitly what's been stated here, because Call of Duty 4, whatever the most the latest one is, it's the biggest selling Call of Duty game of all time, and that seems to happen with all of them. Each time a new one comes out, it's the biggest selling one. But with World of Warcraft Classic, it literally hand in hand in the same sentence says the WoW Classic launch saw the biggest quarterly increase. So whether they stick around, whether they're just feel like dipping their toes in to feel what it's like, or if they're around for the long haul, I'm willing to bet, at least just based on people who I know who played vanilla when vanilla was the only version of World of Warcraft, the people who've come back to play it, they like my brother and his friends stopped playing at the end of Warlords of Draenor. Before Warlords of Draenor ended, they stopped playing the game. They said, we're done with World of Warcraft. And I remember musing with my brother about Classic being a thing. I'm like, if they ever released vanilla again by itself, would you ever play it again? He's like, I don't think so. And sure enough, he is on all hours of every free hour he seems to have. So that's extremely telling to me. And he's on an RP realm. Him and his friends aren't the kind of people who just hammer through to max level. They take their time. They RP. They just have fun with it. So, I think my brother's been playing since the game first came out, since Classic first came out, and he's like level 30 because he doesn't care about leveling up. It's all about the experience for him. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, experience might be the bad terminology. The journey is right. Yeah.
Yeah, so, no, I absolutely believe it. Reading quest texts and stuff like that. The thing about WoW Classic is, because you know that the end game doesn't, you're not going to get left in the dust if you take a little while to get to end game. You have more freedom to just sit there and read a quest text. I've found that, and I talked about it a little bit on one of our previous episodes, but in retail, I'm always just blitzing for the next level, so I can get to max level, and then what? It's just kind of it's a mad rush that takes the fun out of leveling, just so I can get there and then realize, now what do I do? Do you know what I mean? And WoW Classic was a breath of fresh air because. And I had actually been playing it like that for a little while, and I realized, okay, well, slow down, because you enjoyed the heck out of it from 1 to 7, and then you got all anxious just to hit the next level, and then all the fun was gone. So I took a step back, took a deep breath, and kind of played just for the experience, and read quest text and stuff, and that's when I started having buckets and buckets of fun. That kind of changed everything. So I intend to apply that same philosophy when I pick up, or when the next expansion, Shadowlands, when it comes out. I'm not going to just mad rush my way to the end like I usually do.
Yeah, so I've decided to take a different approach to expansions going forward. Maybe not because of Classic, but just because I like getting things done in an expansion. So my main, quote unquote, my oldest character on my, or second oldest character on my account, is a Draenei warrior who he's the hoarder of all of my achievement points. He's the guy who has done all the bosses and all these different things that a few of my other characters have ever accomplished. And so going forward, I was like, well, I'm just going to park him in Pandaria until he's done everything in Pandaria. And then I'm going to move on to the next expansion with him. And meanwhile, as new expansions come out and stuff, I'm going to progress with other characters into that. I'm going to forget about like progressing with my warrior. Just focus entirely on getting things done, achievements, everything, story, getting it all properly absorbed, and then that way I can just blitz with another character and not have to worry about it because I will be covering it later on. That being said, Shadowlands, lore-wise, is so fascinating to me that I probably will take my time. But just a general rule of thumb is I decided to have one dedicated character specifically for absorbing story and getting achievement points and stuff like that. Getting like little mount rewards, pet rewards, stuff like that. So move on, Daniel. What's your little news story?
Well, I'm going to kind of real quickly go over something before I kind of get to my big news story of the day. And Jeff, when we were talking pre-show, you kind of alluded to the fact that you had looked into this as well. Google Stadia, which we kind of talked about on a previous episode when we talked about the console wars, is set to release on November 19th. So, I mean, as we record this, it's November 11th. So, I mean, happy Veterans Day for those of you in the States, and you know, for those of us in Canada, we have Remembrance Day. Sorry, I was expecting you to jump in there. No, the truth is, I just had a brain fart and I forgot what it was called, so I was hoping you were going to bail me out. That's, I know. Shame on me.
I wasn't even listening to you.
Let's just move on. Yeah, so as we record this on November 11th, we have the Google Stadia coming out in just 8 days. And what it has announced, so it was bragging a lot of fantastic games on release. However, what it has announced on the final month of 2019 is actually kind of a small list of games, and not too many of them are very, they're not exactly top tier games. Some of them are top tier games, but none of them are new cutting edge titles.
Yeah, they are.
Like which one? Most of them, or all of them that I was looking at were kind of, a year or so old already.
Borderlands 3 just came out.
Did it really? Okay,
Yes.
so I missed that one.
Darksiders Genesis, that's pretty new, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. I was talking to our mutual friend Jeffrey just on Sunday, and he said that the game's been out. Maybe for PC, it's fairly new, but it's been out for. I'm just looking it up here right now. Darksiders Genesis.
It says initial release date December 2019 for computer, and then Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One 2020.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this isn't the Darksiders with Fury in it then. This is a new thing.
It's like Diablo. It's like a isometric viewpoint.
Interesting. Okay, so I kind of take it back. However, still the list is fairly small, and we can hope for a lot more in 2020. So we're seeing titles like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which that one we know is not new. That one's been out for a little while. Baldur's Gate also, I believe, has been out for a little while. Cyberpunk 2077.
I have a completely different list than you do.
Do you? Final Fantasy 15, Mortal Kombat 11, Red Dead 2, ESO, Tom Clancy's The Division 2. So we've got, and I pulled my list right from the Stadia website. So I'm not sure where you managed to find yours. But yeah, it's to be honest, I was a little bit underwhelmed, a little bit disappointed in the lineup. I was hoping for a little bit more, and maybe I shouldn't have been. But that was just kind of my knee-jerk reaction.
I'm going to its game list to verify whether or not you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I pulled it right from their website.
Yeah, Odyssey, I don't know how long that one's been out. Baldur's Gate 3, brand new, it's not out yet. Borderlands 3 just came out. Cyberpunk 2077 hasn't come out yet. Darksiders Genesis hasn't come out yet. Doom is a huge... it's a couple years old, but it's a huge, awesome game.
Yeah, but not going to be released on the 19th. The Doom games are only coming in the next year. At least that's what I had read. I didn't read that on that website, but I read it from a different games site.
Oh, that's the list I'm looking at, is selection, like titles that won't come with a release but are planned to come out.
Right. Yeah.
Nonetheless, though, I would say the list, there's some games that are look like they're indie titles that look kind of interesting. There's some that are AAA, brand new, awesome things. There's sports games that me and you don't care about, but are hugely popular. So,
yeah. I never really understood the whole football, basketball games that people get so crazy about.
Oh, those football games, that like the Football Manager game.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's so popular. It's hugely popular. Yeah. Tomb Raider. It's releasing Tomb Raider. That's an awesome game too.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a bit older, but it's really good.
So, looking at this list of titles, then, are you kind of further intrigued by the Stadia? Because I know when we've talked about the Stadia before, and you kind of offhandedly sigh with exasperation, like, you and that stupid Stadia thing. So I'm wondering if this list is maybe breathing a little bit of life into your interest. It's a terrible metaphor.
But you're sticking with it.
Yeah, I'm sticking with it, yeah.
I don't care about the Stadia. And it's not that I hate it or that I think it's going to fail. It's that the games that it's promoting that are really good, awesome games are games that I already will have access to on the PC.
Right.
And since I'm a PC-focused guy, it doesn't, like, why would I ever... I don't care that the Stadia is portable and it'll be accessible on any platform, virtually any platform. It doesn't matter to me. It's just... I can already play Final Fantasy 15 on my computer. I don't... Why would I go to some other platform that may or may not play it worse than my computer?
So what's so intriguing for me is that I will have access to all of Google's upgrades. Every time Google upgrades their hardware or their infrastructure or whatever, I will benefit from it. I don't need to buy a new console. Do you know what I mean?
But therein was that statement was kind of confusing, because even if Google updates their own hardware, you only have certain hardware yourself. So you wouldn't be able to stream at their quality. You'd only be able to stream at the maximum quality that your device is able to do.
Right. So maybe I'm just missing a link in the chain here, but the way I read things is that all the heavy lifting was done on their end. All of like the processing and computing and everything was done at their end, and the only thing really that was kind of the choke point for me here where I live, kind of way out in the boonies, is the speed of my internet connection. And
right.
Now so I don't have a fantastic internet connection, but the computing power, of my phone or computer or television or whatever I'm playing it on, is going to be more or less a moot point.
So an easy way to break this down is if you look at something like Newgrounds. Do you remember Newgrounds?
No.
Okay, Newgrounds was this website you could use. I'm not sure if it still exists. It was really popular when we were like grade 6 to 10, like in that range. So I guess that's 1998 to 2004-ish, in that area. I would say, and I know those numbers do not strictly add up, but in that range, Newgrounds was this really, really, really popular site where you could go to, and it had hundreds of browser games on it. So the browser games required nothing from your computer. All you had to do was be able to load in the game with internet connection, and then you could just play the game. And that's sort of what the Stadia is. But instead of just promoting little 8-bit games like what Newgrounds did, it's promoting like current AAA titles. But in order to stream a current AAA title, I don't know how you could do that without like phenomenal internet speeds. So I'm not a huge tech genius or guru or anything like that. They might be able to make it work. I have no idea how it would work, but then comes the input leg from controls. I don't know how that would work, because if you're streaming something,
part of that is negated by the fact that your controller is connected to Wi-Fi and it's not connected to a console. Right, so you actually you gain a few milliseconds because your controller doesn't have to communicate with the console and then your modem and then their servers. Right, you get to actually take one link in that chain out. So I don't know if that's going to fix everything, but the intent of the Stadia controller is that it connects via Wi-Fi.
Right. But it's I don't know, it's just there's something about it that either you or I don't understand. There's something that you're missing or something that I'm missing that I just don't understand it. It doesn't seem to be crazy impressive to me.
It's probably a wait and see thing. I won't likely be able to pick one up before the new year. So I guess I'll be able to kind of watch people's reactions and just comments and stuff and see how things are playing. People might even be able to be, or very likely will be streaming from their Stadia, like on Twitch, right? So you'll be able to see how things are playing and, get people's reactions. So I'll definitely be watching that in the new year for sure. Well, are you ready for what was? Oh, my elbow. I can make it happen again.
Ugh. That's like ASMR.
I'm just rubbing my elbow against my microphone.
That's like a new trigger.
So I guess big news story of the day for myself anyways is it's China. It's China again. I mean, it seems like everything, especially these last little while, it's all been about China. And good or bad, China has decided that they're going to crack down on underage people playing video games. They want to reduce the frequency of video game addictions happening in China. They want to kind of, I guess, take better care of their people by heavy-handedly implementing some of their communist practices in how people choose to spend their time. Now, so here's kind of the very surface facts here. So, like I said, it's an effort to reduce video game addiction frequency. They're planning on banning online games, so emphasis on online. In the entire article I read, there was no mention of local games, just online games between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. So this didn't say specifically for underage, under 18 years of age, but I assume that this particular clause applies to them and not to adults, because everything else applies to children under the age of 18. Next, they're implementing a cap, a 90-minute max cap on weekdays and a 3-hour max on weekends, so that, of course, children 18 years of age and younger cannot play endless hours of video games, on any given day. Even a 3-hour max on a weekend seems a little tight to me, but I mean, that this is just the fact, my opinions notwithstanding.
Do you give your kids that much time? Just curiosity.
In general, no, I do not. In general, we give them about an hour a day, maybe. They don't ask every day if they can play video games, and so we haven't really felt the need to implement a cap. But it'll happen on some Saturday mornings where I'll get up and I'll drink a pot of coffee and play WoW for 4 hours, and the kids will do the same thing, playing video games downstairs. So yeah, that happens. They're capping, as well as capping the time limit. They're capping the amount of money that underage children can spend on either video game subscriptions or new titles or whatever online spending. They're capping it at 400 yen if you're 16 to 18 years, and 200 yen if you're under 16. So the conversion I did just before we sat down, 400 yen for the 16 to 18 year olds amounts to about $75 Canadian. So,
like
what is that?
American.
60 American, and 200 yen therefore would be about $35 Canadian, or $37 Canadian, and probably $30 American. So again, while those restrictions seem to be fairly loose, the fact is there is a restriction. Now, $75 is a lot of money to spend on video games every month.
Canada,
if you kind of sum that up, $75 is a lot of money to spend on video games.
But in Canada, $75 is one game.
Yes. Yeah. So odds are, if you get two titles you really want released in the same month, you won't be able to buy them both. You'd have to wait a month.
Right.
I'm not sure what games cost in China, if it's the same kind of price point. Just it'd be 400 yen for that same title. So that being said, if you're under 16 and you want a premium title, you would never be able to buy one. Right. At a 200 yen cap, you're pretty much stuck to indie games.
Yeah, it's a strange restriction.
It is, yeah. So, and here's the major kicker. All of this I can be okay with. I'm not happy about it, but I can be okay with it. If it was happening in Canada, of course I would riot. But
but you're an adult. You're fine.
I know, but yeah, I don't care for it. But here's it's a huge freedom kicker. Thing. The one that punches me right in the teeth. Responsibility is put on the game companies to monitor their players. It's not put on China. It's not put on parents. It's not put on children. The responsibility is on the game companies to monitor their players. And if they fail to comply, Jeff, they may have their licenses revoked. Their licenses to produce that game and have it available to the Chinese market, they can and very likely will. If we know anything about China's history and they don't make threats idly, they will likely have their licenses revoked in that country. Now, China is the largest market globally for video games, so I don't think any game developing company wants to lose that market. So those are the facts. I mean, my kind of quick digestion of that is this: I don't care for these losses of freedoms. And actually, beyond not caring for them, I find they're onerous. I find them annoying. I find them enraging. This really rustles my jimmies, if you will.
I'm confused by how they're going to police it. Because technically, if the parents literally don't care, they could log in on their own account and say, "Okay, child, play away."
Yep, they very well could, and I don't doubt that is going to happen.
Although that being said, I don't know about console gaming or PC gaming, but I do know that mobile gaming in China is insanity. Like, nobody walks around without a phone. Like, just interface.
I did read in this article that I was reading that they are going to have. It's going to take a little while, but the intent is to have kind of a registration system implemented, a mandatory registration system implemented where accounts are made and real player names are used. And that information is going to be held by the video game developers, but it's going to be accessible by China. So they'll be able to see who's playing, how much they're playing, and they will be able to police it right from there.
Communists.
It is.
They are really, communists.
Well, I know they are. It was just that your tone of voice was pretty venomous. So, all of this. The intent for this is to cut down on video game addiction, and the reason that one really bothers me because recently the World Health Organization developed an actual disorder for video game addictions. And characterized it and stuff like that, right? Gave you more or less the parameters of what qualifies as a video game addiction. And the reason why it bothers me so badly is because they're extremely loose on their parameters. They are so open to interpretation on their kind of protocols, and it's anybody who's a supreme conservative at heart would look at this and be like, everybody's addicted to video games. We should just cut video games out altogether. And anyone who's, a permissive at heart, they'd be like, this doesn't apply. So, I mean, first of all, they don't do a very good job of outlining what constitutes a video game addiction. And actually, I'll just go right ahead and read, because I kept I found the definition and I put it in my notes here. So, a video game addiction is described as an impulse control disorder, which does not involve use of an intoxicating drug and is very similar to pathological gambling. Video game addiction has also been referred to as video game overuse, pathological or compulsive excessive use of computer games and or video games. Full stop. That is their description. So
that means everyone's addicted.
It is so open to interpretation. There's no characterization there. So, I mean,
it's really stupid for me, from my perspective. It's really stupid because this gaming disorder classification, because there are legitimate people out there with legitimate gaming problems.
Yes.
And the way this is so broadly stated just umbrellas everyone under the same problem. And it's
absolutely
it's ridiculous for the people who don't actually have a problem, who are able to easily function in society, and it's also punishing and it ignores more so the people who actually have a problem.
Yes. Yeah. Well, exactly. It demonizes, and we've seen that in politics. We've seen that all over the place where video games get demonized and blamed for gun violence and all that. We talked about that not too long ago. And it's just it's really frustrating to me because as far as I know, there is no correlation. There is no peer-reviewed paper. So here's the thing. Psychology is a science. Science requires data. It requires measurable. It has to be measurable. So, of course, my knee-jerk reaction is to tear this definition apart. In fact, the entire article that I read, if I took it at face value, was rather farcical. And I pulled this off of addictionrecov.org. So, I mean, it's not like it's some Kotaku website or something. Like these people actually take themselves seriously on addictions and stuff like that. And I don't mean to imply that they shouldn't. And that video game addiction, really, we should have a good hard look at it. That's not what I'm not implying that it's a ridiculous notion. But like I said, there's no measurable parameters there is an absolute metric butt ton of may and maybe and mights in this article, and no definitive language. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this definition that I'm reading says that gaming addictions are identified specifically in the areas of impairments to their family relationships, social lives, work duties, or other areas.
That's kind of where I'm leading into here with my next point.
Okay, go for it then.
Right. So they did give us a few characterizations, things with which you can use to measure against yourself, but no science, no measurability. Still, I'll stick by that assertion. So the first one they said is if you have a preoccupation with a game, that's their first kind of characterization. So they qualify that. They qualify that by saying thoughts about previous online activity or anticipation of the next online session. This, I feel like Jeff Foxworthy. You might be addicted to video games if you have thoughts about previous online activity.
I have that all the time.
I know.
Oh no!
On that one. So I was kind of, when I was running through this list, I was measuring it against myself, and I concluded that there's no hope for me. The next one, the use of the game use of the game in increasing amounts of time in order to achieve satisfaction. So you used to play for 20 minutes and you enjoyed your time. Now, if you only play for 20 minutes, you didn't enjoy your time. Now you have to play for 40 minutes or an hour or 6 hours, or, it's increasing. So, I mean, for myself, my gameplay actually ebbs and flows as games come out, and, my interest in them kind of waxes and wanes. Sometimes they lose their luster. Sometimes I find myself with less and less time to play, not more and more, simply because, my children are getting older and they're more interested in extracurricular activities. Got to drive them places, and we just had a birthday here today with 15 children, and I tell you, my house there was a day of preparation and half a day of cleanup afterwards. So, I mean, just having kids is a lot of work. So, I find myself, like I said, with less and less time, not more and more. So, I don't know, maybe my lifestyle disqualifies me from a gaming addiction, but, there it is.
Well, one good example is BlizzCon. Maybe it's a separate disorder, but BlizzCon was a huge thing. The next day I went into work and I didn't think about it at all.
Yeah.
Does that mean I don't have a problem suddenly?
And
the second I got home, I was like,
maybe you're just good at compartmentalization.
Well, still though, it depends on so many stupid factors. I just
well, and this next one here is a little bit funny. So, repeated unsuccessful efforts to control, cut back, or stop game use. So, does that mean that I'm not addicted if I don't try to stop?
That also implies that gaming is bad.
Or that I want to quit.
Right. You shouldn't want to quit if gaming isn't bad.
So I think
that's a leading question. I don't like that.
Yeah. As I'm kind of reading through these here, I just had a novel thought. This list probably isn't it probably isn't a comprehensive list, but rather, if you are experiencing some of these, then you might be a redneck, right? If I'm Jeff Foxworthy, you might have a video game addiction.
Well, a good example would be, I'm a writer. For audiences at home don't know, I'm a writer. I'm not a published writer, but I take great pride and interest in writing. And if I sit down one day, I'm like, oh, I have this awesome idea. I gotta get this down in notes of some sort. And while I'm writing, I look up and I'm like, I wonder if anyone's playing Classic right now. And I log in. Does that mean I'm suddenly being pulled away from my other hobby to play my second hobby? Like, and that therefore I have a problem. Like, it's weird.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing at this point, especially. It's a difficult thing to classify. So, feelings of restlessness, moodiness, depression, or irritability when attempting to cut down use of the game. So again, this implies that you are trying to quit. It's almost like you're a 2-pack a day smoker and you're trying to quit. You know, you're moody, you're depressed, you're irritable, and you just bark and snap at everybody just because you want to go have a smoke, right?
Right.
You know, again, we know that smoking is bad because of what it does to your body. That being said, sitting at your computer or in front of your television for endless hours getting no exercise, that's also hard on your body. So, you know, there's something to be said for that. They might have an argument there about gaming being unhealthy.
It's so reliant on the context because,
sure.
like in my specific like lifestyle circumstance, on the weekends I spend like a lot of my time sitting on my butt watching Netflix or playing video games. But like my general weekdays, I have an extremely physical job that I'm at for about 10 hours a day. Extreme, like I said it in the last episode, I got 36,000 steps. Like I often get like between 20 and 30,000 steps every single day. That's how active my job is. So,
well, and with 4.5 foot long legs like you've got, I mean, those steps take you a long way.
Yeah, for those who are interested in my size, I'm 6'5". I'm a giant person. I get a lot of exercise. I get tired, but nonetheless, I go home and to reward myself, I play some video games for a couple hours. Like it's like, and when I say a couple hours, recently that's been absolutely the case. I sit down, I eat supper while watching Netflix or something, takes a couple hours, and then I play World of Warcraft or something for 2 or 3 hours max, and then I stop and I do something else. But if you backtrack my life to 5 years ago, I was playing World of Warcraft constantly. Every free second I had, I was playing World of Warcraft. Does that mean I cured myself of the disorder? That's not how disorders necessarily work, are they? Because I didn't try to cure myself. My life just changed.
Yeah. Well, you had the maturity to be able to see it, right? As your requirements, your life requirements altered, you realized what was important, and you know that was your priority. Not that you didn't realize before, but rather your priorities changed.
But that was never a conscious moment.
Sure.
It just happened. Yeah. As most life usually happens. It just, you don't think about it.
Yeah. There was a time when I was concerned that I would be or might be addicted to video games. And so I did quit kind of cold turkey for a while. It was about 8 months during the mists of Pandaria. There was quite some time that I didn't play. And, to be honest, I didn't experience any of this kind of restlessness, moodiness, maybe a kind of a craving. I wouldn't say it bordered on depression, but it was like, man, I wish I could just go and play video games or something for a little while. But I wasn't. It wasn't irritable. It was. I'm experiencing the same thing right now because we just got like a 13-inch dump of snow on us, our first snow of the year, and I can't go golfing. I hadn't been golfing for a month before today anyways, but I can't go golfing now, and I want to go golfing. So do I have a golf addiction? I don't think so. I think I'm just missing the thing that I want to be doing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And there's also the knowledge that I won't get to do it again for another, 4, 5, 6 months because winter in Canada is stupid.
Right. Going back to the China thing though, it's them being communist in nature, it's just like one of those what can you do kind of situations. It sucks for the gaming industry because it means there's going to be way less consumerism from China.
Oh, for sure.
And it's going to be such a significant blow to every single developer and publisher in the industry. Like it's not going to help the audience. It's not going to help the developers or the publishers. It's not going to help anyone. It's punishing everyone just because the Chinese government thinks they know best, essentially.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying they're wrong. They might be going a little bit too far with this, in my opinion. But I totally support if it's proven that games like are negatively impacting for whatever reason in your region or country. Sure, do whatever you need to do. But it's just China is so huge that it's going to impact everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they carry like a sixth of the world's population, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, they're over 2 billion right now, I think.
Are they really? Oh, I thought it was only 1.5 or something. Either way, that's insane. So next criteria is they say if you were gaming longer than you originally intended.
I never intend.
Well, yeah. Do I? I have life commitments. I come home, and there's nobody at home when I come home for my lunch break, and I spend 45 minutes here at home. I never look up at the clock and be like, oh my gosh, it's been an hour and a half. I'm late for work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are undoubtedly people like that who kind of qualify for this gaming disorder that we're talking about. So I think we're fairly conclusively proving that you or I don't have that disorder. But that being said, like if any of these things kind of describe you or yourself, I mean, no matter what a couple of knuckleheads on the internet are saying, if any of this is kind of hitting you right at home, I would really advise you to talk to somebody, to talk to a loved one, or maybe seek counseling, because these worlds we play in, they're a heck of a lot of fun, but ultimately they're of little to no value in the grand scheme of your life. So if you have a hard time controlling this kind of stuff, just like a gambling addiction, you have a hard time controlling it. I mean, you got to be able to experience freedom from that as well. So don't let us poo-pooing on this kind of give you a way out, I guess. We gotta take our own initiative.
I just come from me and Daniel both do. We come from the generation of, our generation seems to be the last generation of like normalcy, in the sense that I know that chose good words there. No, in the sense that like when I was a kid, nobody was allergic to anything. Now everyone is allergic to everything, and I think it's because like one mother had one child that was allergic to peanuts, and then all mothers who were pregnant were like, "Oh, I better not eat peanuts," or whatever, and then their kids their children in the womb weren't exposed to peanuts or something like that, and it became a like. What's that called? Lack of exposure made them allergic, or something like that. Huh. That's just a random theory, but anyway, I'm just saying it's fatiguing for me to hear about all these different things. Autism is becoming way more prevalent. I don't know why. Things like ADD. Everyone seems to have ADD. I don't think everyone has ADD. I think like maybe 30% of the population, but from what I hear from people at work, like 85% of the people I work with have ADD, and there's just no way. I think people are just overreactive to things. This gaming disorder thing is just going to add to the mess of nonsense people trying to cash in on welfare and crap like that. That I just, I have a gaming addiction, I need pills, and the whole opiate crisis and all this nonsense sort of wraps together. If medication is made for the gaming disorder, it's going to make it worse and worse and worse. Yeah, I think you're kind of tipping your hat about how you really feel here. How do you really feel about all this? No, I wasn't trying to hide anything. No worries. It's funny that you were trying to test yourself against all these different things that you were reading. I looked up the other day what a feeling of impending doom was, because this guy was telling a story about how he has this heart flutter condition. Okay. That sometimes it flutters, or it stops. It doesn't stop, but it slows so dramatically that he needs this special syringe injection to like jumpstart his heart. It's not adrenaline, but it's something like that. But
Really?
the sensation that you get from the initial syringe injection is a feeling of impending doom. And he's like, I get it every time I get the injection. And I was like, what the heck? I've heard of a feeling of impending doom before, but I've never really looked up what it precisely means. And so I looked it up, and it's obviously just a feeling of, death approaching, essentially. But while I was looking it up, one of the other Google answers was, what are the symptoms of, what are the indications of imminent death? And I was like, so I clicked on that, and all the things it listed, I was like, oh my gosh, I suffer from half of this.
Funny thing, I've never spoken to anybody about this outside of my family, but I actually have a stress-related condition. It's kind of funny. That's why I'm bringing it up. It's called exploding head syndrome.
Oh.
It's extremely rare, but when I'm in parts of my life when, say, big promotions are up, or I'm concerned about where the money's going to come from to pay the bills or something like that, when I get really stressed, I will, as in the moments where I'm drifting off to sleep, when kind of my brain guard is down, every single neuron in your brain fires at once. It's just like a hiccup in the brain. Everything just fires at once. And the way that it experiences through my eyes is, with my eyes closed, a absolutely brilliant, blinding white flash in my eyes, and a sound like a gunshot in my ears. And that happens all at once, and it makes me sit bolt upright in bed in kind of just panic mode. It hasn't happened in a very long time, and knock on wood, I have a better control on my stress levels than than that. But I mean, it's happened. It's happened. And that's it's a real thing. It's not measurable that I'm aware of. Maybe they can catch it, if you're lucky enough, they can catch it on an EKG. So I guess it's kind of put it on the balance scales with this kind of with this gaming addiction, with something that I've experienced myself, and I don't know how measurable it is. And similarly, gaming addictions, without being quantifiable, it's difficult to measure them against psychology, right? Science, like I said before, where everything is supposed to be measurable.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a couple of other criteria, quantifiers, that I'm just going to roll past because we kind of just organically move past it. But I think that it's interesting. This whole thing is interesting. It's fun to talk about. Another thing is, in this article, they referred to a game. They didn't pluralize it. They didn't use a small g and call it games with an S. It was every mention of the word game was a capital G, as though a single game was the offender.
Okay.
And again, that kind of just it lends to that airheaded feeling that I get when I read it. So, take it with a grain of salt. I don't know how prevalent this addictionrecuv.org is. If maybe it's a huge publication and we really should be taking this seriously, but I don't know.
Have you ever caught a TV show or a movie where the characters in the show reference gaming in any capacity, and that it's this gaming discussion was written by a non-gamer, and you're like, oh, this is literally cringeworthy.
This is painful.
I don't like using the word cringe because people misuse it a lot, but in its proper definition, nails on a chalkboard, cringy. This is cringy to hear.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's that's I'm sort of getting the same kind of feeling from this kind of overreaction to gaming.
They talked about Warcraft in what's that TV show with the four nerds on it?
South Park?
Big Bang Theory. in one of the original episodes. It might even have been in season 1. They talked about they talked about WoW, and they talked about being able to meet this troll under the bridge for some hanky panky, and and getting this sword of Azeroth. They were very, very excited about how somebody got a sword of Azeroth, and then they just turned around and put it on eBay right away. And I'm like, you can't do that on WoW.
There's no sword of Azeroth.
You can't do that on WoW. So yeah, I know what you're talking about, these cringe-worthy moments. But that kind of wraps me up, Jeff. I'm going to throw it back over to you. What do you have for us?
So, this I could have thrown this in at the beginning, but it's more BlizzCon related than it is World of Warcraft related. Jeff Kaplan, who is the head of the Overwatch team, he's the director of the game. Yep. He came forward and said basically that eventually, who knows if it's a year down the line or 5 years down the line, he intends 100% to merge Overwatch 1 and 2 together into one client.
Mm.
And the reason this is important is because why is Overwatch 2, like you said earlier, a sequel? Why isn't it just like an expansion in WoW? Like, why can't it just be this giant purchasable DLC pack?
Well, I mean, they did introduce a couple of new systems, right? There's a itemization system, there's a talent system. These are pretty massive overhauls to the game. But like you say, I mean, we've seen those kinds of... I mean, WoW is a perfect example. We've seen sweeping changes to characters, classes, talent systems, right? Kind of getting scrapped and rebuilt from the ground up. I don't see how this is any less or any more work than that. Do you know what I mean? And these are completely available in, like you say, in downloadable content.
Right. And the thing is with Overwatch 2, or Overwatch in general, I guess, is me and you don't really follow this too closely, but Overwatch has been very stagnant as of late. Like prior to BlizzCon, there was nothing huge happening for Overwatch, and Jeff Kaplan just came out and said, well, Overwatch 2 is 100% the reason that Overwatch hasn't been having any current updates, any ongoing updates. But now that Overwatch 2 is out in the open and it's going to be continually developed from here and publicly talked about, we can focus more time on Overwatch 1 updates, which basically tells me that they're going to be focusing on doing updates for Overwatch 1 and 2 at the same time, unless they're going to be doing these updates and then releasing them both simultaneously, like the same update for both games at the same time, if the games will eventually become one client. It's confusing to me. I don't know what they're doing, because he actually said that he remembers Halo 2 players who just wouldn't log out. They kept it up. Like they thought the game was so awesome that they didn't want to quit out to play Halo 1 online.
Jeez,
because and that's what he's afraid of for Overwatch 2 is people will migrate to Overwatch 2, keep playing the game, and eventually Overwatch 1 will die. And he doesn't want that to happen. So he wants the two clients to merge together. Now, I don't know how that's going to affect pricing for people who are only going to ever stick with Overwatch 1. Will that mean that eventually a paywall will come along and say, hey, give us $40 or whatever the price is, or you can't play, or something like that? I have no idea. But it is very interesting to me.
Yeah. I don't really have much to add. I mean, it's kind of redundant at this point, but I'm sure it'll come out eventually why it had to be, maybe it's just to garner more interest in the game. I mean, it could very well have been a planned expansion, but like you mentioned, with interest waning and things, maybe looking a little
bleak,
a little bleak, not so great for Overwatch's future. Maybe this is the interest infusion that they needed to get people playing the game again.
Well, it's interesting that they're doing it this way, because imagine if World of Warcraft did it this way, where when Burning Crusade came out, it was just like a completely separate entity, that your character couldn't exist simultaneously in vanilla and Burning Crusade at the same time because they were both different clients.
That'd be odd.
It would be odd, but it would also appease the people who didn't want to move on from vanilla, and it would appease the people who did want to move on. It would just mean that it would be kind of almost superfluous, because I'm not sure if the Burning Crusade people would be, restricted to the Burning Crusade content, or if they could go back to like a duplicate vanilla land of some sort. I don't know. I'm just, this is just off the top of my head right now, but yeah, it's just it's interesting to me that I've never heard of two games from the same franchise being developed simultaneously to each other.
Yeah, it's strange, because usually one, the progenitor of the other, supersedes it, right, and kind of takes its place.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, it's a weird one. I think they have to, if there was any kind of like trophy system or anything that existed in Overwatch 1, it's going to make it feel bad for anybody who wants to go over to Overwatch 2, unless they have that merger, right?
Right.
So
next up is a game that it's coming out next week. This is much in the vein of, what was that game called? Antechamber? Do you remember the game Antechamber?
I don't think so.
It's an indie.
On Newgrounds, yes, it still exists. Anyways, go ahead.
What?
And I just pulled open my phone to search Antechamber, and when you were talking about the Newgrounds website, I searched for it just to see if it still exists, and yes, it still exists.
Yeah, of course it does. So Antechamber was this really psychologically complex game where you had to, every room you went into, it was all one, the whole game was one big map, and every room you went into required a puzzle solving that wasn't just connect A to B or solve this maze puzzle. It was really, really interesting puzzles that took advantage of the 3D environment you were in and all of these different things. It was kind of revolutionary for its time. And coming up in this next week is a game called Superliminal, which is a perspective warping puzzle game. Superliminal, it's the kind of thing when you
You heard that, I suppose?
Oh yes, it sounded like a child screaming.
No, it was a child opening his bedroom door.
Oh, I see.
Don't mind the child screaming in the background, just keep talking.
So Superliminal is a game where, when you pick up, let's say you're playing something like Skyrim, and you pick up a piece of bread. On the table, the piece of bread looks like it's the size of your character's hand. And then when you pick it up, and let's say you lift it above yourself, and as it drops towards you, it gets closer to the camera, and as it gets closer to the camera, it appears larger.
Right.
That's what Superliminal does. It makes the object larger as it falls. So then you can pick up exit signs or tables or chairs and over your head and drop them, and when they drop back down, they're 10 times bigger than they were before.
Really?
And then you can interact with it differently. So in the trailer, it has the character picking up this little dollhouse and dropping it, and then it drops and it's a man-sized house, and then you go inside of it and it has its own dimensions, and then you approach like a picture, like a painting of a chessboard, and when you get close enough to the painting that it covers your entire camera space, you're inside the painting and you're in a completely different room. And so it really, 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 really reminds me of Antechamber, in the sense that you're going to have to think of things that games usually don't reward you for doing. Like picking up a dollhouse in any other game and then dropping it would just have the dollhouse drop on the ground and bounce. But in this game, it makes it a completely interactable object, And it like Antechamber was also well known for having super branching paths. You could basically choose to go wherever you wanted, and you weren't locked out. It's the same with this game, I imagine, where you can go like one of like 20 different directions and still end up solving the puzzle. But it's a really I love bringing to the attention to games that are like totally like unique and challenging to game developing.
And that's available on Steam?
I believe it's on the Epic Games Store. But it's like Portal as well. Portal was another like interesting game that when you're playing it, you're like, oh yeah, well obviously it's Portal. But as you go through it, you're like, oh my gosh, Portal, this is clever. And it gets more and more crazy as you go into it. So yeah, I wanted to bring attention to that game just a little bit. Additionally, they're making a Halo TV series. Have you heard of this?
I have not. Wow. Because I really loved the Forward Unto Dawn, four show series that they did.
That was phenomenally done. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're making a Halo game, but they're also making a Witcher, or not a Halo game, a Halo TV show. But they're also making a Witcher TV show.
This I did know.
And it's interesting to me that they're so gung ho about making both these super popular games into TV shows, especially regarding the matter that basically all video game movies have sucked worse than the worst movies in existence. Like game movies don't have a very good track record.
They don't.
So, but they're jumping on the game TV shows like nobody's business. And they're live action. They're not cartoons, right? They're not CGI.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Video games have the capacity to tell story today that they didn't have in the Pong era, and even some of the you flash forward into like the Nintendo 64 era, and the game that they could the story they could tell was compelling enough if they wanted it to be, but only so far. You know what I mean? There's not as much depth to it, and I think that with the game size, with better narrative directors and stuff like that being hired on, and really a maturing appetite for video games, they're coming out with some super fantastic story. I'm thinking of games like Red Dead Redemption, right? Or The Last of Us, or games with just a truly phenomenal story that is made for movie. The Warcraft movie, like you said, just like every other video game movie before it, bombed. It did not so hot at all. It was a steaming pile of garbage. But if with the right director, that game has so many stories worth telling. Do you know what I mean?
But if you look at a game like Assassin's Creed, it's the same thing. But the Assassin's Creed movie sucked.
I never did see it.
Oh, don't.
No, not worth.
Don't see it. It's not even sucky entertaining. Like Mortal Kombat is so fun for me to watch. I'm not sure if it's because I was a kid when I first saw it, but I love watching that movie. Stop elbowing the mic.
I'm not. My elbow's just on the table, but I won't.
But yeah, so there's things like Prince of Persia was not great. Tomb Raider obviously was just not at all really connected to the games. Resident Evil, the same thing. I think the first Silent Hill movie was pretty good, but I haven't seen it for a very long time. And then there was a game called Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. I actually own this on DVD. I don't know why I own it, but I do, and it's not at all linked. If it is, I can't see the connection, but
right.
It seems to be not at all linked to the games. It just happens. If you read at the back of the box, it says it's based on the game, but
right.
There's like no lore implications.
Yeah.
But there's also another game, Detective Pikachu.
Right.
Which I haven't seen yet, but I've heard like marvelous things about. And I don't know why it works compared to these others.
We own it, and I haven't seen it just because of my my bias against Pokemon stuff. My family watched it one night without me because they know how vehemently I dislike the Pokemon franchise.
You are so... I don't even know the word to describe you. You hate bad graphics and you hate Pokemon. Of all things to hate.
I'm pretty exclusive. Well, it's not just Pokemon. It's turn-based. Okay, so you really want to get into it? I think we've gotten into it before. I probably don't need to get into it again. Turn-based stuff. I don't believe anime. So the cartoons are out, and the games are out, and I just find the collection system annoying.
So do you think anime is like witchcraft or something?
No.
Well,
no.
That doesn't make any sense.
I don't like it. I find the Japanese style of emoting, like how people are so off the rails, just insanely emotional. You know, they go from nothing to bawling their brains out to screaming in rage, you know, because they dropped their pencil on the ground and the min snapped off of it, and now they have to go and sharpen it again. You know what I mean?
You should watch Cowboy Bebop.
Cowboy Bebop. I'll take a look. Is it on YouTube?
No, it's probably on Netflix though. Cowboy Bebop is like 13 episodes or 21. It's a short series, but it's
okay.
It's as American as an anime has ever been.
So it's not often the animation that bothers me.
Then it might bother you because it's old.
No. Like I'm saying I'm okay with this style of animation. It doesn't bother me. It's usually like I said, it's usually the characters. I find them unbelievable. I find them often static, or any dynamic changes they have aren't believable. No depth. Yeah. So that's me. Maybe I haven't given it its proper chance, or haven't seen the right ones. Maybe I'm basing this off of like things like Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon and Attack on Titan. You know.
So when you were like 12, were there any anime that you ever watched or glimpsed?
I mean, I had seen them. I had seen Pokemon was a thing. Digimon was a thing. You know, those kind. Oh, Sailor Moon. That was huge when I was a kid. What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
That was huge when I was a kid. But I couldn't get into those. I couldn't get into them.
That's odd to me because, like, it's not that anime dominated my childhood, but, like, when I was a kid, like 8, I watched Dragon Ball, and when I was, like, 10, I watched, that was probably around the age of 12, I watched Inuyasha, Inuyasha is a really neat show because it does have all the tropes that you just mentioned, but it's interesting that it has the male character there's two main characters, there's a girl and a boy, and they're in love with each other, but the boys, all the storylines that are like focused on the male character are like action-packed awesome sequences that are like clearly like designed for young boys, while the girls' storylines are clearly developed for young girls, but because they're both main characters in the same story, they're obviously in love with each other. There's like this weird like meshing of romance and action, and it just, for me at least, it works. Like it's the action is so good that I can like sit through, as a 12-year-old kid. The action was so good that I could just sit through the romance. I accepted it, because the action was awesome. And I've never ever seen any anime ever that's or series in general that have successfully melded those two genres together.
So what is your favorite anime then?
Oh, man.
Because I'm going to give this a real honest effort, it had better be like the best one.
Well, the thing is, if you gave even if you gave my favorite a chance, it still has all the tropes that you hate of like overly emotional and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you might still hate it, but it's
I might.
called My Hero Academia.
I'll make a note of this. I'll do this, Jeff. I will actually give this a try.
I got you to try
Hero Academia.
I got you to try Attack on Titan, and you were like, "Ooh."
Well, and I was intrigued. I was intrigued for about 3 episodes, and then kind of lost some of the intrigue, and then the weirdness factor just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger with no payoffs. Do you know what I mean? There was no resolution or any hints to resolution or anything. So kind of by like no character progression. By the time we got to episode, I think I watched episode 6 is probably the last one I watched. I was like, yeah, this isn't for me.
Oh, I remember where you got, because you got to the episode right before the awesomeness started. It was episode 7. You got to episode 7 because episode 8 is like phenomenal, awesome twists that keep happening, and
well, why didn't you tell me? I would have given it another shot.
But you didn't. You were like, no, I'm done. But our mutual friend Jeffrey, he got to episode 2 and quit.
Oh,
and I was like, come on, man. It has a weird, like its art style is different enough from other anime that I thought it would be fine. But like, so My Hero Academia is probably my current favorite.
Okay.
But there's One Piece, which as an anime is hot garbage. I might be creating many enemies by saying that, but the manga is phenomenal. There's a show called Full Metal Alchemist, which is, that show is completely finished. Like My Hero Academia is ongoing.
Okay.
Full Metal Alchemist is completely finished. It's a finite show, and it's so free. It's written by a lady, and I gotta give her props because she knew what she was doing. It's just a really like emotionally like really well. It really tugs at the heartstrings throughout the whole show, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it's not like a sad show. It's just it successfully draws you in.
Yeah, and let's be clear. I'm not afraid of emotion. Actually, I really do enjoy when they're able to plug that in and make me feel something. Point in case, I watch This Is Us on Netflix with my wife, and we both love the show just absolutely equally. And that's one of those shows that's kind of like, like it makes you feel all kinds of things: happy, sad, annoyed. You know, you're rooting for these characters, you hate those characters, and you just shake your head at these other ones. And I don't think any show ever has made me feel, you know, talking about feelings on our gaming podcast, but nothing has ever kind of elicited those responses from me and gotten a good review. Do you know what I mean? So, and I absolutely love that show. And I'm, like I say, I'm not afraid of it in a video game. I'm not afraid of it in an anime. So if that's what Full Metal Alchemist is, I'd be willing to give that one a try too.
Yeah. So we can cut this out if we want to. I think anime is kind of prevalent in today's youth, but the reason My Hero Academia is really interesting is because it's called My Hero Academia because every single character in the show, or in the entire like universe of that canon, has superpowers, except for like 1% of the population. So it's basically telling a story based on the idea that everyone has powers, and like how would society have developed based on that fact. So it just sort of flips the idea on its head and tells the story from there. So it doesn't do anything explosively new. It's just it's different in its own right. But then there's other shows. People out there might chastise me, but there's like Sword Art Online was really popular for like 5 years. Hot garbage. It's it's a total train wreck. Like it's basically based on a game where they put on this helmet and they go into a video game world.
Okay.
In that one, the main character had access to the beta, and apparently he was only one of like a very, very, very small percentage of people who had access to the beta. So when the game released, he knew all the secrets. So right away, he was way higher level than everyone else. So, which it is weird to me because I'm used to reading stories that are like based on a character that knows nothing at the beginning or has no power, and then by the end of the story has all the power or whatever it may be. So in Sword Art Online, at the very beginning, he knows everything and he's more powerful than everyone else. So you're like, okay, so what's drawing me in then?
Yeah. Why do I feel for this character who has everything?
Right. And so at the very, very beginning, as soon as the game releases to the public, everyone logs in, and then the developer of the game says, you're all locked into the game. You can't log out. And I will unlock the game when somebody beats it, but I don't think anyone can beat it. And so you're like, okay, so there's the conflict. I get it. And so, but you have no trepidation because this main character is like, okay, I'll just beat the game. I know all the secrets to the game. I'll beat it.
Right.
So he gets to the end of the game, and then the developer creates his own character in the game and cheats in the game because, of course, he's the developer. He has mod powers. Mm-hmm. So he's like, hey, you almost beat the game, Mr. Main Character. Here's what I'm going to do for you. If you can beat me in a duel, you'll set everyone free. So they start dueling, and the main character or the villain keeps cheating so the main character can't win. But then through sheer force of willpower, somehow he overpowers the developer. And that's where you're like, I don't care anymore because the writer has broken their own rules to the game. The character is not hacking. They're all stuck in the game. How is he able to break this guy with god powers? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So, anyway, it's so stupidly popular, and it has a broken plot like that I can't forgive it. So, anime overtime. This was Anime Corner with Jeff.
It was good. I like I said, I'm not so pigeonholed or narrow-minded that I won't give something a shot again. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't hate it forever just because I hated it once. Right. So I will give them a try. Don't you fret.
But I'm more likely to believe that you will like the Full Metal Alchemist more. It's a finite series, so if you think you can get through the whole thing, then you might be able to. But it's the concept that the characters are all really likable. There's a plot that makes sense. It's very straight. It's not very straight arrow, but it's like there's like the Red Wedding when people were trying to figure out what happened at the climax of the Red Wedding, like like who did what kind of thing. Right. That's sort of what happens in Full Metal Alchemist. There's little hints that are dropped throughout the series that you're like, what's the ultimate plot here? Like, what's going on?
Good. That's good story writing.
Yeah.
I like it when people do that, so I'll keep my eye open for those.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gents, that about does it for Jeff and I. We're going to get the heck out of here. But thank you very, very much for joining us on this episode that really was kind of shaping up to be, kind of underwhelming. But I think we ended up beefing it, just not intentionally, but it ended up being pretty beefy anyways.
You are full of yourself, aren't you?
That was good English. Well, if you want to get a hold of us, please drop us a line at tldrpodcast@gmail.com. Ask us questions. We can make suggestions for future episodes or what have you. You, of course, can find our videos online at youtube.com/TLDR podcast or tweet at us at podcasttldr. Thank you very, very much, Jeff, for joining me this week. And we'll be back next week talking Bungie, and we will finally get at the Halo franchise. So, yeah, we've been promising we'll finally deliver. So, Jeff, any final thoughts before we cut the cord?
No.
Thanks, everyone, again for joining us, and we will catch you next time.
See you later. Have you been... You know how YouTube has several tendrils of, like, weird wormholes, essentially?
Okay, I don't really follow, but keep going.
Oh, you know how you, like, if you would just keep watching, like, featured videos on the sidebar, you'll eventually end up in a very strange part of YouTube.
Yeah.
But it's not always the same strange part. Sometimes you're like, why am I watching this person scratch noodles against their skin? Or something weird. You're like, what the heck is happening?
Okay. Mass Effect. Is that the one with Nate? The main character is Nate. You have it's a 3D platformer.
No. Are you thinking of Nathan Drake?
What game is he in?
Oh, Daniel, you're such a prude.
I'm not a prude. I just don't have access to all the games.
Uncharted.
Thank you. That's the one.
Oy vey.
Yes. I did watch.
I'm turning Jewish.
4 of those. That is the level of incredulity. When you've reached Jewish, holy moly.